welcome back to Comic Vantage. So a video that I've seen floating around recently, a lot of people seem to be making, is their top 50 comic books. And I wanted to get in on this because I have a completely different perspective than most people have on their top 50. Yeah, it's this is what this box is sitting here for. This is my top 50. Got a bunch of books in here. I'll pull them out. Now, you know, when it comes to top 50 lists, for me anyway, you're not going to find any big books, and you're going to see very few keys. But everything that's in this box means something to me, and that's why it's in my top 50. Now, whether it be just because of a cool cover, or a great story, or just because it brings back some nostalgia for me, it's the reason why it's in this box. And I have a story behind all of these, so let's get started. It might run kind of long, because like I said, I got a story for most of these books in here. So let me just put this to the side, and I'll grab stacks at a time and pull them on out. But first, let me start with some of the books that didn't fit on the box, because, well, they're a little too large. And these books are in no particular order, so... Hey, went out of focus there. Okay, back. All right, first up, Ninja Turtles number 4, and this is a first printing of this book. Now, a lot of you are out there going, why not number 1 or number 2 or number 3? Well, this one here has a little special meaning to it, and I'm going to open it up and show it to you. While I do that, I shall tell you the story. Actually, let me tell you this funny story before this, and this gets back to the whole, you won't see any big books in my little list here. But way back when I first started going to Torpedo Comics, the manager was there, and we were talking, and all of a sudden he comes out with, so when are you going to buy a big book? And I'm like, well, never. And he's like, don't you have any collector in you at all? And I'm like, no, not really. Because for me, when I collect books, I collect them because I like their stories and or other little things. And, anyway, now, if somebody handed me a Batman number 1, I would gladly take the book, but I'm not going to hunt one down. All right, so anyway, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 4, and this is a first printing. Sorry, I got a piece of cardboard here because I sent this to pressing. This book has been pressed, and it's in awesome shape now. Anyway, when Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were first marketing the Ninja Turtles, they weren't sure how well it was going to sell. I think they thought it was going to be a flop. So what they would do is like the first 100 books off the press, they would sign the interior cover to try to help sell them. And this is one of those books. It's one of the few I've ever seen. So this, like I said, this means a lot, and I love this book. So there you go. I do have other Turtles first printings in my collection, but this is the one that really, gets me just because of that. All right, next. Vampire Hunter D number 1, and this is... I don't even know what year this is from, but it is pretty recent. But this is the Art Germ cover. Now, I'm a huge Vampire Hunter D fan. And this is Frankie's Comic Collectible. And this is a 9.8. I'm a huge Vampire Hunter D fan. It was one of the very first animes I ever remember consciously watching, other than like Voltron and things like that. Because when you're a kid, you don't realize they're anime. And this Art Germ's version of D here is probably one of the most beautiful I've ever seen, short of Yoshitaka Amano himself. So I just had to own this book. Absolutely love it. And the last book on the list that will not fit in the box. A lot of people have seen this recently, and this is my Batman Ninja Turtles 9.8 as well, signature series, with this great Jay Lee sketch and Kevin Eastman. I love both of them. Of course, Kevin Eastman for co-creating Ninja Turtles, and I love Jay Lee artwork, so this was amazing when he did this for me. You're going to see quite a few Jay Lee books on this list, just because I love the man that much. Anyway, put those over here to the side. Now, the next thing I got is I got some trade paperbacks. And I don't care what anybody says out there, this is my list, so I can put trade paperbacks on this list. First up, Cadaver Dogs of Winter. Now, this is the only format to buy this in, so that's why it is on this list. Absolutely 100% amazing revenge story. The story in here is killer. The black and white silhouette artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. And this is a book I will do a full review on sometime, so keep an eye out for that. I know I've talked this book up a lot. I believe this is the third or fourth time I have repurchased this book because I keep lending it out and never getting it back. But you know, I can't blame the people that keep these books. Most of the time I just don't care because it's a good story. And if I know you want to keep the book, I'm going to let you keep it because I know you love it as much as I do. Beautiful. Next, The Crow Special Edition. Now, this is the full graphic novel containing all of the original Crow stories, along with some bonus material that James O'Barr has put in here. I absolutely love The Crow. I love James O'Barr. He's a great man. I've met him several times over the years and got to hang out with him and talk with him. I have owned first printings of the original run of The Crow. They are long gone, and that's a whole other sad story for another time. I don't want to get into that right now. That's why I'm showing the trade instead, because I don't have the individual issues anymore. This is a beautiful story. Everyone should have read this. Next on the list, Evil Ernie, Youth Gone Wild. Now, this is another story or another set that I have owned the original issues on, but the trade really is more special to me than the individual breakdown issues. And the reason was when I first discovered Evil Ernie, I was like an 18-year-old kid. I did not have the money to dish out for an Evil Ernie #1, because even at the time it was on for $100, because it was the first appearance of Lady Death, and it was blowing up. So I found the trade, and I picked it up, and it is the original black and white Stephen Hughes artwork. I love Chaos Comics. Absolutely amazing, amazing. I have this tattooed on my leg. That's how much I love Chaos Comics. So, like I said, this means a lot to me because this is the first place I ever read Evil Ernie, right here. Oh, and this is my original copy of this book from, I want to say, was it 1994, possibly 5, when I first originally picked this up. Yeah, 1994. Look at that. Absolutely amazing. All right, now we get to actual books. I'm just going to start with a stack. I'm going to pull them out and set them up top here. Next book on my list, Magneto #0. Wow, look at the shine on that. These are those incredible Max Light bags that I received recently, along with the fullbacks. Now, you might have seen in my video where I complained the fullbacks didn't fit. I just used a paper cutter, took a centimeter off, and now they've worked perfect. So anyway, beautiful Bill Sienkiewicz artwork, tells the origin of Magneto. This was a great, great story. I fell in love with this book back in the day, and I remember begging my dad for $10 to go and buy this book at a comic book store. So, yeah, love that. Next. Oh, and another thing is you're going to see a lot of modern books on my list, and a lot of Marvel. A lot of Marvel and a lot of 90s, because I was a Marvel kid for so many years. So there are a few DC and others, and a lot of indies too. And this is one of them. Now, this book here really means a lot to me as well, because I met Scott Lobdell a couple years back, and he actually just sat down with me at his booth. It was right before this book had come out, and just laid out the entire storyline of Red Hood and the Outlaws for me that he had planned on writing for Rebirth. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I ended up loving it. So that's a great memory for me. All right. And then we have an autographed copy of the Phantom variant of Letter 44, #1. This a buddy picked up for me as a gift. And he knows I love Letter 44. I love Charles Soule. So he grabbed this for me. And I absolutely love this book. Next on the list, Prime #1. Again, like I said, I'm a product of the 90s. I love 90s books. Ultraverse was really, really good. It was Malibu's attempt at a shared universe, just like Marvel or DC. And they created all these great characters. This one in particular was Prime. Now, this is actually a kid, an early, like preteen kid who ended up having these incredible powers, being like this ectoplasm on himself, super strong. He wants to save people, but he has the rationale of a child, so he ends up going about it the wrong way a lot of times. He ends up hurting people because he doesn't even know his own strength. He can't control his powers when he starts with. Great story. Also coming out of Malibu from them, the Ultraverse, was Rune, and this was Barry Windsor Smith's creation. I'm just a huge Barry Windsor Smith fan, so this was a great book to own for me as well. Next, Turok the Dinosaur Hunter, #1. And this was when Valiant started really kicking it into gear back in the 90s again. They were putting out Exo and Turok, and these were old gold key books they had picked up the properties for. And they had Shadow Man. I mean, they were just really amazing stories back then. Really cool stuff. And this was great. And I'm a sucker for Chromium. And just look at that. And Uncanny X-Men 314 Early Frost. This is another one of those great Scott Lobdell stories. This is when people really first started realizing that Iceman was an Omega level mutant. So the story behind this is that, and this is actually directly from Scott Lobdell, was that at the time he wanted to explore more of Iceman's abilities. He wanted to make him stronger. He wanted to make him be able to do all this crazy stuff, and he wanted to revamp his look. And Marvel just flat out told him no, because they had a new toy line coming out. And they were afraid people were going to get confused with the different looks of the Iceman from the toy and the Iceman from the comic book. So what he did was he created this storyline where Emma Frost invaded Bobby Drake's body, completely controlled it, and started using his powers in ways he never thought possible. And this led to other storylines later on where he went to her for help to control his abilities or to use them in different ways. And this is when you really start realizing Iceman is just a serious ass kicker. I love Iceman. Great character. Always have. And Uncanny X-Men #165. And this is for the Paul Michael Smith artwork and the Paul Michael Smith artwork alone. And God, this cover is just absolutely beautiful. The storm turning into a brood there. Paul Michael Smith back then, this is 1982. He was slated to be a superstar artist. This guy was going to just really go places. He could have taken over, but I don't know, just bad things just started happening with him and to him and for him, and I don't know really what happened, but he just completely just fell off the map until later on he introduced Leave It to Chance at Image Comics. So I love this man's artwork. And every time I show people his artwork or a little sketch I got from him in my sketchbook, everybody's like, oh, especially pros, they're like, really? Oh, God. They just go nuts over Paul Michael Smith's artwork. Next on this list, Marvel Comics presents #84, Weapon X. This is another one of those very early books that I bought as a kid. And wow, I remember just going to the local flea market and finding these in the little comic book stand at the flea market and buying the entire run. This is when I fell in love with Barry Windsor-Smith artwork, in particular his rendition of Wolverine. And this is a wraparound cover, and I used one of those cool clear backboards because I just absolutely love this cover. This is the quintessential Wolverine to me. This is Wolverine, Barry Windsor-Smith's version right here. And this particular piece of artwork is called The Agony of the Claws. And I've had the privilege of holding the original work in my hands. It was, 15, 20 years back at a San Diego Comic-Con. Glenn Danzig always runs a booth where he would sell original artwork, and he had this hanging on the wall. I remember asking him what it cost back then. He's like, $30,000. And I was like, here you go, have that back. All right, and now, actually a rather new book, but this is Walking Dead #178, another awesome Bill Sienkiewicz artwork. I saw this book and I immediately just fell in love with it. I think I mentioned this before, where it just creeped me out so bad that I had to own it. It's haunting. It really is. Just absolutely love it. All right, I want to put some of these back in the box before I get going. I don't want them to slide around. All right, so next on the list, we have an X-Force #47. Now, I love the entire Adam Paulino run on the X-Force. I love the artwork. I love the stories. It was a lot of fun. This one here is usually the one you find missing just because it's a Deadpool story. So, with Deadpool, the spec is real. And this was a great Deadpool and Siren story. Siren is actually like in this mental institution, and she calls Deadpool to come break her out. Really a lot of fun. And then we have Prophet #6. Now, another one, back in the 90s, Stephen Platt was the man. Everybody had their eyes on Stephen Platt. And I remember just picking this issue up and just staring at the artwork for hours upon hours. It was crazy. Just the amount of detail this guy put in his work, and it was ultimate as well as also his downfall because the guy couldn't meet deadlines. Next on the list, RRH number 1. Now some of you out there might be going, what the crap is RRH? Now RRH stands for Red Riding Hood. And we got a nice little signature from Orlando Harding. Now if you ever ended up at a convention with a First Comics booth, do yourself a favor and stop by. Everyone at the booth is so friendly, so much fun. I mean, by the time you're done with the show, you're going to feel like family to most of those guys there. It's really cool. And I loved Orlando Harding, and he was really a great guy. Laid out his entire story for me. And this is really cool because we have Red Riding Hood. And it is set in modern times, and she's being hunted by the big bad wolf, who's actually a werewolf, and her mother are the Hoods who hunt werewolves, and her dad leads a biker gang who are all descended from the original woodsmen. I mean, it's a great story. It's a lot of fun. All right, I got to pull the next stack out here. All right, and then next, one of the other few DC books on this list, but this is Omega Men number 3, and this is the first Lobo. It's signed by Marv Wolfman down here. It's Lobo. I got to own this book because really, even if you're not a fan of DC, Lobo is such a great character. He's a lot of fun, so I had to own that. Looks like we're starting to slide there, so let me pop these back in the box. And next on the list, Swamp Thing number 34. Now this book, I just absolutely fell in love with the artwork. It's once you start flipping through this book, it's beautiful. It really is absolutely beautiful. It's really cheap to pick up. Do yourself a favor and just grab it and just stare at it because wow. The interior cover, or the cover art, the interiors, everything in this book is just absolutely beautiful, and it's a great Alan Moore story, so you can't go wrong. And then we have Venom Lethal Protector number 1. Again, this is because I'm a child of the 90s. And this book was everywhere. Venom was really just starting to break out into his own, doing his own thing. Got his own little mini series here, trying to be a protector and collect all the homeless people in New York. It was a lot of fun. Great story. And of course, this cover is gorgeous. What year we got on this thing? 1992. Ooh, boy. I was 16 at the time. Maybe 15. Here we go. All right. And then we have this awesome G.I. Joe Art Germ Baroness cover. And I mean, this one, I have this in a top loader. This one here needs no explanation. All you have to do is look at that artwork and know why this is in here. I mean, So we have 2 art germs on this list. The third art germ that would be on this list is that absolutely gorgeous Lady Death he's done recently. But that, I'm feeling that's going to be out of my price range for a while because I don't think anyone is going to want to part with that. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's probably the most beautiful Lady Death ever drawn. And next on the list is Xenober number 1. This is on the list because this was an A-OK for my buddy Daryl, Daz the Key Chaser, over in the UK. So I love this book. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got the Max Light with full back treatment. Beautiful, beautiful book. Little handwritten notes he sent with, and his son Ethan. Both really great guy. If you haven't checked out his channel, make sure you do it. Daz the Key Chaser. Next on the list, Gen X number 1, and this is signed by Scott Lobdell. Again, this is Generation X. This was, my generation growing up right here. This was our comic book, named after us. Beautiful. And this absolutely gorgeous wraparound chromium cover. I'm a sucker for chromium. But also, it was great characters, great storytelling, and this Chris Bichello artwork. Beautiful. I love that stuff, too. Next on the list, Nightcry number 1. And this is signed by one of the writers inside, Everett Hartsoe, the creator of Razor. This, again, right here, this was Underground 90s. This had a story by Brian Pulido. It had an Alien Evil Ernie story. It had a mini origin story of Razor in here from Everett Hartsoe with artwork by Ed McGuinness, which is kind of surprising. It had a story by Joe Muggs. It had a story by Hart D. Fisher. These 4 guys, these were the bad boys of comic books back in the 90s. I mean, they were underground. This is who they were. And this was all the teenage angst of the 90s rolled into one book with all those guys. It was absolutely amazing. Love this book. I still love the stories in here to this day. Just, it's amazing. And get a little more mainstream now. We got G.I. Joe. Again, this is G.I. Joe number 60. It's G.I. Joe. I mean, I don't have to say more. But if you need more explanation than that, it's because it's a Frank Miller. Or, sorry, not Frank Miller. It has a Todd McFarlane cover on this thing. Yep, this is a Todd McFarlane early work. Right there. Really doesn't even look like him, but that's him. Still, a lot of fun. Again, we have a Wildcats number 2, and this is that awesome holofoil cover. I mean, obvious reasons. Jim Lee in the 90s. I mean, what more do you have to say? And next up on the list here, all new X-Men number 40. The reason this is on this list because it features an absolutely amazing story by one of my favorite X-Men ever, and that's Iceman. Absolutely brilliantly written story that was just, it's an absolute pleasure to read. So this will always stay on this list. Some of these comics might come and go on the list as years pass on, but this one is not going to go anywhere ever. All new Wolverine number 2. Now this is no need for explanation. This is the first appearance of Gabby. That's why this is on this list. Absolutely love Gabby. She's one of the greatest characters to come out of Marvel Comics in the last 20 years. Absolutely love her to death. X-Men second series number 11. And again, this is a beautiful Jim Lee cover. It's probably one of my favorite X-Men covers ever. I've owned posters with this on. I've owned t-shirts with this on. Actually, over the years, I've owned like 3 different t-shirts that have this front image. Now, this one here in particular is special because you see this nice silver background. That usually denotes a second printing when it had silver or bronze or gold background. So this is a second printing, but this was a second printing only available through the Pressman board games back in the 90s, making it extremely rare. So, great fun to have this. And I will be getting that signed by Jim Lee at the end of the year. All right, let's put this next stack back in the box. And let's start in on the last stack. All right, next book on this list, Gen 13 number 1, ongoing series, the Jen et Jackson cover. Now, back in the 90s when Gen 13 came out, the miniseries was a breakout hit. Everybody just fell in love with this series. So they started a monthly series, beginning with issue number 1 over again. Now what they did was they went a little nuts and they created 13 different covers. Get it? Gen 13 covers. This really started the big whole variant shuffle right here. This was one of the few covers I could never find, and I've always wanted it, so I ended up grabbing it recently, and now it's on my list. I will get Scott Campbell to sign this soon, and then it's not going anywhere after that. Next up, Spawn number 9, and everybody's like, well, why not Spawn number 1? Now, as much as I love Spawn number 1, Spawn number 9 here will have a special place in my heart. Millions of copies of Spawn number 1 floating around, but this number 9, my newsstand edition right here, and this is the first appearance of Angela. Now, everybody knows I love Angela. Great character, especially back in the Spawn series. So, now to go along with this one, I also have Age of Ultron number 10, which was the first appearance of Angela in Marvel Comics after they purchased her. This is the Angela cover variant, still wrapped in its poly bag, although I can see a little bit of like Angela's foot under that bag there. So that was kind of cool. So, both those right there, Angela goodness. Next is this G.I. Joe number 4 Dave Johnson variant cover. I also got it signed by Dave Johnson. This here, I just fell in love with that cover. I mean, really, it's just Destro right there in his hand. You can see the Cobra infection, all the little Cobra logos just going all over the world. Love it. It's such a great cover. Absolutely beautiful. And then these two kind of go together. So technically, I list these as one number. So there are 51 books here, but these go together. And this is my Darker Image number 1 and the Darker Image number 1 Platinum Edition. And this one is signed by Jim Lee. I will get this one signed by Jim Lee before the end of the year. And also coming up at the end of this month, I will be getting Sam Keith to sign both of these. I mean, this is just 90s for me right here. And eventually I would like to get Rob Liefeld to sign them as well. I don't know if I can bring myself to get him to sign, what is he charging, like $40 to sign this book? And it's a 50-cent comic book. Why do I want to pay $40 for that? So I'm not sure I want to do that yet. But I'll have Sam Keith and Jim Lee on both of these. Next is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 52, the Team Eastman Fun Club edition. And it's signed by Kevin Eastman down here with a small remark. Now this is a very, 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 very hard book to find. This is kind of like one of my grails right here when I was able to find this book, and this book will never go anywhere. This one I will keep forever. Beautiful clay man cover. And did I mention it's really hard to find? I think like in the last year, one has popped up on eBay. So really good, really fun. I like it. And then back from Hall of Heroes, which was an old publishing company, we have Creed number 1 from back in the 90s. Now this is, God, just look at the artwork on this thing. This is Trent Kanuga. This really, man, this kid could have been the next Todd McFarlane. He was already drawing like Todd McFarlane, and well, this is the 90s. This kid was living all of our dreams back then. He was 17 years old when he came out. He was writing and drawing pro comics. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And he now works, I believe it's for Blizzard Entertainment, doing stuff for like World of Warcraft and Diablo and things like that. So that's where we lost him too. But God, I'd love to see him get back into comic books. All right. Now, one of the books that really, really, really got me collecting back in the 90s, Lady Death number 1. Again, absolutely beautiful chromium cover. Just gorgeous. Love Lady Death. And this is the first introduction a lot of people had to Chaos Comics, even before Evil Ernie. Because when this book came out, whoa, it just blew up. I mean, this really, really started the bad girl trend. It was like this book, Razor, both of them just, man, kicked the bad girl trend into high gear. And along with that is this Lady Death Odyssey number 1 premium edition. I just love this cover, and I got it signed by Brian Pulido. I got one of those cool clear backboards on it because it's awesome. And it's just a beautiful cover. And, I had a little bonding moment with Brian Pulido when I bought this book. It was really neat, so great story. Now, also staying on the whole chaos kick, Lynch Mob number 3, and this gorgeous foil cover right here, this Greg Capullo artwork. Greg Capullo did several covers for Chaos Comics back then, but this was another AOK that I had gotten from a viewer named Teeny Ortiz, and she sent this to me. She thought I would like it, and I do. I love this book, so this is another one. It got to be in my top 50, and this will never go anywhere. Another awesome book with a Greg Capullo cover. This is Evil Ernie number 0, and this is the platinum cover, hence the whole silver looking thing. And awesome story behind this as well. So back then, Chaos always puts out a ton of different variant covers. They had their chromium covers, leather covers, and diamond crusted whatever. And this was the platinum edition. This is one of their early attempts at doing like a little variant thing. All right, excuse me, there had a little choking fit I had to go taking care of. All right, so anyway, cool story behind this book. This is one of their first attempts at like a, platinum covers and whatever else. I believe they printed like 1,500, maybe 2,000 of this book. So, they get a bunch of these printed, and they get them all shipped out of the printers, and all of a sudden they don't show up, and they're like, well, where the hell's our books? Turns out the printer made a mistake and shipped them to Dark Horse Comics in California. While they were there at Dark Horse Comics, there was an earthquake, and the earthquake destroyed over half of the stock of these books. It's estimated there are less than 800 of these left in the world, so I'm really, really happy to own this. Hey, now here we go, getting into our little Jay Lee section here. Wildcats Trilogy number 1. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Jay Lee kind of holofoil cover. I also have it signed by Jay Lee. I love Jay Lee artwork. Man, I love his artwork. This is a gorgeous cover. Now, along with that one, I also have this beautiful Zen the Intergalactic Ninja. Of course, it's another beautiful chromium cover signed by Jay Lee right there. Man, this guy's artwork I stared at for hours back in the 90s. I absolutely loved his work. Still do to this day. I even told him that's how much I love his work and how I stared at it for such a long time. And I think he's absolutely amazing. I think I embarrassed the guy, which was kind of funny. All right, and next book up, Catwoman number 51. Now just look at that cover. I mean, do I really need to explain that? That thing is just beautiful. I love this cover. Now here's my interesting story behind this book. So I have an Adam Hughes signing coming up at my LCS in a few months, and I bought a bunch of Adam Hughes books to flip. I had no intention on keeping any of these because, I mean, okay, so I don't know, 15, 20 years back, I went to a San Diego Comic-Con, and Adam Hughes was an absolute ass to me. I mean, really, the guy was just, I immediately just no longer a fan, stopped buying his work. I never bought anything he's ever done since. But, I figure I'd buy a couple books, get them signed, and flip them. And then this book showed up, and I looked at it, and I went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Because I don't think I can part with this. I love this book so much. It's absolutely gorgeous. So that's one right there. I mean, I'm probably going to keep this forever because I love it that much. And next, this is Frank Miller's Sin City Silent Night. Look at this. This is probably one of the first Virgin covers ever made right here. Absolutely beautiful. Now, the story is called Silent Night because it takes place around the holiday season, but the real reason it's called Silent Night is because almost the entire book is no words. There is only one absolute small panel where Marv says anything, and the rest of the book, no dialogue at all. It's completely told through Frank Miller's storytelling, his artwork, storytelling of his artwork, and that is the sign of a great, masterful storyteller when they can tell a story without the words. Absolutely beautiful book. I love this thing. This is probably one of my first Sin City books as well. I believe I bought That Yellow Bastard before this, but man, this really kicked it in for me here. All right, now we're getting a nice little X-Men section here, and this is going to end off our top 50. X-Men second series, number 30. Now this is the wedding of Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Like I said, again, this was 90s for me. Now, when I first started getting into collecting comic books, it was towards the tail end, or like the mid to the tail end of the 90s. So by that time, the Image exodus had already happened. So when I started reading X-Men comic books, it was Andy Kubert. He was the man right there. Jim Lee was already over in Image. McFarlane was over in Image. Rob Liefeld. I mean, I was still going through and buying some back issues and picking a lot of stuff up. But to me, the X-Men was right here. This was the 90s. So, and this had made my local newspaper as well. It actually had a giant, full-page thing on the wedding of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, which was kind of funny. Next one, also from the same series, but issue number 25, and this is the Fatal Attraction series with that cool hologram right there. Ooh, actually, that shows up really well. Look at that. And this is the issue where Wolverine gets every last ounce of adamantium ripped out of him by Magneto. And I got it signed by Andy Kubert. Great issue right here. It's absolutely heartbreaking story. And then, of course, gotta have the Jim Lee issue, though. This is the number 1. This is signed by Chris Claremont right there and Jim Lee down here. So that's a no-brainer why this is in the top 50 right there. Jim Lee's revamp of the X-Men really, really, really was amazing. And last, but absolutely not least, Uncanny number 266. Now, this was a book that I had picked up years back, and this really was like the first big book I had ever purchased back in the day, and I paid $30 for it. Now, I have this copy, and I have it signed by Chris Claremont, Jim Lee, and Andy Kubert. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm missing one autograph on here, and that's going to be Joe Rubinstein, and that'll complete this book for me. And then I'll get it framed up and hang it up on the wall. Because, wow, really? That's just beautiful. All right, people. That's my top 50. Like I said, probably a little different than what you've been seeing, because, I'm an odd person, and I like it that way. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. If you like this kind of video, leave me a little comment down below. Let me know what you like. Let me know which book was your favorite out of this list. Or if you have one that is not on this list, let me know as well. Maybe I should check it out. Anyway, to all my current subscribers, thank you for watching. You guys are awesome. Love you all. And to anybody new, hit the little CV right there. Subscribes you, and the little notification, the little bell, let you know when all these cool videos come out. And like always, guys, thank you for watching, and take it easy.